Someone asked me recently if everyone is capable of change. And of course, there are always outliers and exceptions to every rule, but from a scientific standpoint, we are all capable of change, and it forms a fundamental aspect of our development at all stages of life, not just in childhood. However, a question like this is really referring to the patterns of behaviour in the context of a relationship with a someone or a something. Really, this is the proverbial question of whether or not a leopard can change its spots. This saying is typically used to question whether a person can change a pattern of behaviour. But why is this the case? Why does experience tell us that others are frequently unable or unwilling to change? And what does this tell us about some of the key mechanisms in changing our behaviour? We are undeniably creatures of habit. Neural plasticity helps make patterns of behaviour that are perceived to be beneficial more likely to be repeated. What is beneficial is an interesting notion, especially in the context of our psychology, because a pattern will be perceived as beneficial or successful if it helps us to achieve a desired outcome or avoid an undesirable outcome. This might mean that we're likely to reach for a glass of wine because it helps us to avoid anxious thoughts, or we might be likely to behave aggressively towards someone because we find it helps people avoid confronting us. Behaviours with negative consequences for ourselves or for others can become reinforced as positive survival mechanisms, and are therefore retained and internally prioritised over less familiar patterns, which are perceived to be less successful. A key mechanism for change is found in the ability to reflect on ourselves and our behaviours and to assess, in a balanced way, the positive and negative benefits for ourselves and for those around us. For most of us, this reflective process is born from the behaviour of those around us, and in childhood, this process is known as socialisation. We hopefully learn to take turns, to play cooperatively, and not to resort to violence to get our way. However, the reflective nature of our relationships continues to have a profound effect on our behaviour in all stages of life. We are a social species. We care what we believe that others think of us, and we are inclined to mirror behaviours that we see around us. If we find ourselves in social environments which do not create the opportunity to show us different behaviours or thinking patterns, then we have far less reason to believe there might be anything amiss with our own. If we see the majority of people dropping litter, for example, then we're far more likely to follow suit. So when a person asks whether another can change, a key factor to consider is their social environment. If we're looking for a partner to consider their behaviours as counterproductive for the relationship, but their friends all behave in similar ways and communicate to each other similar problems with their relationships, then it's too easy to assume the fault lies elsewhere rather than within. This is perhaps evidenced most readily with rehabilitation programs for alcohol or drug addiction. The most direct interventions involve removing the person from their normal environment and having them spend time in a rehabilitation centre or retreat. The biggest challenge for the recovering individual is their return to the former environment, especially if there's no change to their social structure. If the addict returns to the former community, who do not make any adjustments to their own models, then it's very possible the addict will relapse. The same is true of any type of behaviour pattern, including the manner in which we manage our relationships with each other and ourselves. If the mirrors we find around us through other people, such as our friends and professional colleagues, are reflecting back no justification to change our default mode of being, then we will find it incredibly unlikely to make the change. So, can a leopard change its spots? Yes, but probably only if the leap, and yes, that is the collective noun for a leopard, and yes, I did have to look it up, changes its spots also. If our social environment doesn't reflect to us the need to change, it will be much harder for us to initiate the ambition for this on our own behalf. This is a reminder to be careful about our social environment, and that diversity of perspectives is critical for our growth. We don't have to accept all of the opinions of all of the people, but if we surround ourselves with only those who agree with us, we deny ourselves the opportunity to grow, and this can have a devastating consequence on our ability to form healthy relationships, both with ourselves and with others. Thanks for listening.